Hello and welcome to another video. Today I wanted to start a new little series on my channel. I really don't watch a lot of movies, but I always want to watch movies. And I also have a whole bunch of books on my TBR that have adaptations, but I feel like I always have to wait to read those books until I want to watch the movie, and then I just never end up reading them or watching the movie. So I thought it would be fun to start a series on my channel where I read a book and then also watch the movie or TV show adaptation and do it as a vlog. So that's what we're doing today. This will be the first episode of that new series, and I've really been in the mood for horror lately. So episode 1 will be The Watcher by who's the author? A.M. Shine, I think, is the author. I really wanted to go and see this in theaters when it first came out, but I just didn't get around to it. But it's now available for streaming, so I thought it would be a perfect time to start this little series. So I'm going to start with the book and then watch the movie afterwards. This one is a horror novel about this woman who ends up getting stranded in the woods somewhere. Her car breaks down and her phone dies. She's walking around trying to find help, and just before it gets dark, she comes across a house and there's a woman outside yelling at her to run as fast as she possibly can and get inside. When she gets there, she learns that she is going to be trapped there, and there are these creatures in the wood that require them to stand in this room that's like all glass windows for them to observe for the whole night, and they cannot be outside after dark, otherwise they will die. That's what I know about it based off of the trailer of the movie. I don't think I've ever actually read the synopsis for the book, but I'm hoping the book is going to be a similar plot. I'm assuming it'll be pretty similar, at least the basics of it. It sounds like it's going to be right up my alley. This is exactly the kind of horror that I love. I love a dark, creepy forest and terrifying foresty creatures, and that feeling of being watched is something that I live for when it comes to horror. So I hope this one's going to be for me. I've heard not great reviews about the movie, at least. I heard that the plot is kind of stupid, so I'm assuming the book and the plot have pretty similar reviews in that sense, but hopefully I will be the target audience for it and it'll end up being a win for me. So I have the audiobook out, so I'm going to go and make some dinner and get that started, and I'll check in once I have some thoughts on it. Alright, so I've now reached the halfway mark of this book. I'm actually a bit more than halfway. I think I'm about 58% of the way through, but close enough. I like it, but I don't think I love it so far. It's definitely not that scary. I was really hoping for more of that kind of eerie feeling, and I've not gotten that at all. It's not really atmospheric whatsoever. It's mostly about these characters trying to learn how to work together, but there really hasn't been that much scary stuff happening. Like the Watchers are there every single night. They talk about them all the time. There's descriptions of them screaming and clawing at the windows and trying to get in. So the description of the scary stuff is there, but it's just not coming across as scary. I feel like there's a lot of potential for this book to be really, really good. I'm just about to get to the really good part, or what I hope will be the really good part at least. So there's definitely still time for it to get good and to start to become what I wanted it to be. If there was ever a time for some terrifying stuff to happen, then it would be right now in the spot where I'm just about to get into. So fingers crossed that it'll kind of get to that point, but I'm not overly hopeful right now. The writing style is like fine, but it's also kind of bland at the same time. I think that's just my main issue. It's just kind of boring, which sucks because again, it has such good potential. The concept is cool, the characters are interesting. They're in this glass house in the middle of the forest with these terrifying creatures around them. This should be really good, and it's not bad, but it just could have been so much better. At least the first half. Again, the back half could still blow me out of the water. I kind of doubt it, but we'll see where we go from here. I think I have about maybe 2.5 hours left in the audiobook. I'm going to try and finish that today and then watch the movie tomorrow if I can. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'll check back again once I finish it and let you know my final thoughts. Hello, how you doing? It's been a few days and I've now finished The Watchers. I liked it. It was good, but it's a big but. I don't know. I had a lot of issues with it. There were some things that were done super well. I was really interested in how the relationships between the characters were being developed. It didn't quite get to where I wanted it to be, but it was definitely starting to. I think that was my biggest issue, that like there were so many threads that were interesting and had so much potential, but none of those things quite came to fruition. You know what I mean? It's like the things were there. They were on the page, they were interesting, I was invested, and I was waiting for those things to get really, really good. And they just kind of didn't, but the ideas were there is the thing. So I liked it for the ideas, but the execution was a little bit of a flop for me. I'm gonna settle on giving it a 3-star. It's a very low 3-star though, like it just hit 3 stars. The second half was definitely better than the first half. I think I was saying before that I really wasn't getting that sense of tension, and I did start to feel more tension later on in the book, but it still just didn't get to where I wanted it to be. Things were definitely higher stakes and a lot more interesting, faster paced, but I never really had that feeling of, oh shit, you know? Even during the climax of the story was better than the first half of it. It was definitely more dynamic and interesting, but again, just didn't quite get to where it could have gone. That could have been such a cool scene, but instead it just kind of went nowhere. Not nowhere, but it didn't go as far as it could have gone. I feel like the author could have dug deeper and made this a lot more horrific than it was. Like, it was definitely a horror, but it wasn't that scary of a horror. It was pretty surface level, pretty basic. I kind of recognized all the beats that it was taking. I'm not even a huge horror reader. Like, I like horror, but I don't read it that much, and even still I could recognize all of these classic horror beats that it was hitting, and it made it feel like nothing was really a surprise. And so the very end of this, like the last page, fantastic. That gave me that like spine tingling feeling that I was looking for the whole time. Even though I knew that it was coming, the very end of this book was very well executed, but even just the last couple of chapters was also such a letdown, because once I realized where the plot was going, I was so interested in seeing how the character relationships were going to develop from there. It could have been so fascinating to see how their lives changed together and to really dig deep into more of a character study sort of thing, but that just went nowhere. And then I had so many questions about like logistics and like how are they going to handle what comes after the climax and all of these things. I had so many questions that I was looking forward to having them answered, and none of them were. It felt like the author just glossed over all of the things that made this book interesting. They just kind of ignored it. It had some interesting things to say about, you know, folklore and mythology and that kind of thing, but I was in it for the character study, the really cool plot, the mystery of, you know, how are we gonna get out of this alive sort of thing. And it just kind of skipped all of that. I feel like this book could have used maybe an extra 50 pages to really delve into all of those questions. That could have been super interesting and made this book fantastic. None of those things really happened, unfortunately. So while it wasn't a bad book, and I'll still read the sequel because I am really interested to see where it goes. I'm hoping that the next book will kind of answer some of those questions and dig into the things that I was hoping that it would in this one. But the first book wasn't bad, it just wasn't nearly as good as it could have been, and this could have been such a good book. Oh man, give this plot to T. Kingfisher. Oof. Oh, this would have been so good if it was written by T. Kingfisher. Overall, I'm just kind of disappointed by it. It had, oh man, it had such good potential. It could have been amazing, and it almost was. There's just a couple things, actually more than a couple things. There were a good number of things that had the author dug deeper and really given their all to this book. It could have been a phenomenal read. This type of book is right up my alley. I love books that give me that spine-chilling feeling, and I love feeling watched. And you know that feeling when you're at like the bottom of a staircase and you have to turn the lights off and you run up the stairs as fast as you possibly can? I love that feeling, and I love books that can give me that feeling. So books like from T. Kingfisher, and also We Used to Live Here by Marcus Cleaver, I think, fantastic. Books like that give me that feeling, and it's such a fantastic thing, and that's what I look for when I read horror. And this book had such a perfect opportunity to do that. It's literally called The Watchers, and it just didn't quite get there for me, so I'm a little bit let down by it. It was still a decent read, and this author is definitely one to watch for future books. From what I briefly saw, I'm pretty sure this is his debut novel. He's written some short stories and things that were published, but I think this was his first full-length novel from what I could tell. So I'll definitely be keeping an eye on this author in the future and see what else he puts out, but this one sadly was a letdown. But now that we're done the book, it is time to go and watch the movie. So I'm just making some dinner right now, and once the sun goes down, I'm going to put on the movie. I'm so excited for it. I'm a little bit less excited than I was now that I finished the book, but I feel like a lot of the things that I didn't like about the book could be really good in the movie, because I find it's a lot easier to create that tension and that feeling of being watched when it's through visual media. So hopefully the movie will do that part of it some justice, but I am a little worried about how the character study will go, because that's a lot harder to do through visual media, is to get a really in-depth look at characters when there's also so much other stuff happening outside of just the characters. So there might be some good, there might be some bad. We'll find out. Let's go put it on, and I'll check back in once I finished it. So, the next day, we watched The Watchers. This was... it was bad. Just... I don't know how to be nice about that. It was not a good movie, and that's really all that I could say. It was pretty terrible. I think I spent the majority of the movie just sitting there like, ugh, what is going on? It was so bad. Okay, it had, similar to the book, it had potential, but any areas where the book did well, the movie did terribly. In the areas where the book did bad, the movie also did bad. So, my positives, the very beginning of the movie, fantastic. Like when the main character first gets to the forest and she realizes that she's lost and like finding the bunker and stuff. That was excellent. That was so well done. I had such high hopes because it started off very, very well. That was really creepy. The tension was there. You kind of had that creeping sense of dread. Lighting was great. The birds whooshing in gave me a bit of a jump. Super well done. I was like, yeah, awesome. This is gonna be a really good movie. And then there was one other scene kind of towards the middle that was also really good. I'm not gonna spoil it, but like the burrow, if you've watched it, then you know what scene I mean. That scene, amazing, because it had that feeling of being watched. That was so well done. It was excellent for that one little scene, and the rest of it was such a flop. Oh my god, I cannot believe how bad this was. It was so disappointing because like they could have played with it and been able to make an incredible movie based off of this really interesting source material. This plot line could have been an amazing movie, and yet it was not. So my main issue with it was the characters. They had no depth at all. We got very little in terms of their relationships with each other. I found them all to be very one note. The acting was also pretty bad, especially, what was her name? Maggie? Margaret? Madeline. Madeline sounded like she was reading a script the entire time. Like she would go off on these monologues about, you know, folklore and history and stuff, and it sounded like she was like a middle schooler in their first play kind of thing. Like it was really, really bad, but like that was one of the parts of the book that was done really well, was how interesting these character dynamics were. And I knew that that was going to be an issue in the movie because it is really hard to get that level of depth in an hour and a half long movie, but it was possible, and it did not achieve that whatsoever, especially in the ending. Like I was saying with the book, how I was really hoping the ending of the book would really delve into like what happens with them after the climax, and the movie had none of that. The plot line was the same, but there was no furthering relationships. It was just like, just kind of ended, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, it was so bad. It was so bad. And yeah, I can't believe that they made this already not great book so much worse. I did like how the creatures looked. That was cool. They were kind of slay, you know? They're very tall and very curvaceous with very long legs. It's giving model, you know, it was great. So that was kind of cool. And I liked the sounds they made. I thought that their clicking, chittering sounds were pretty creepy. So I did enjoy that part of it. I think this movie succeeded in the visuals. It was visually stunning. It was well made in terms of the production aspect. The music was good, the lighting, the atmosphere, that was all great. I liked their camera work, that kind of thing. That was very well done. It was just everything else about it was horrendous. So, unfortunately, not a good time, but I'm glad that I watched it at least. It wasn't a total waste of time. I don't know, I'm trying to be nice. Anyways, that is that on that. Thanks for watching the first episode of Page to Screen. I've got a whole bunch of books and movies that I want to do for this little series. If there are any that you would like me to do, let me know. I'll definitely take recommendations. If you've watched this movie or read the book, let me know down in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts as well. Especially if you liked either of these, I would love to know what made you like them, because I did not. So please let me know down in the comments. But in the meantime, thanks for watching, and I will catch you guys later on. Bye.